welcome to the Situationship Expert YouTube channel. I am your host, India Lynn, also known as the Situationship Expert, first on TikTok, now on YouTube. If it is your first time joining me ever here, I want to say I am very grateful that you chose this platform. But if it is not your first time here, welcome back. Today we are talking about something that I feel can either make or break a relationship. And that topic is communication. Communication. I've had people argue up and down. No, that's not the number one reason. Nope, there's this. Nope, there's that. And some examples: finances, family dynamics, all these things. But my argument is, well, don't you have to communicate your thoughts and feelings in order to understand someone's mindset regarding finances or their opinions regarding the family dynamics? So yes, ultimately the root on how we communicate our thoughts and feelings, opinions, stems from communication. How we communicate, if we communicate, methods on how to communicate better. And it's not all about what your partner's doing, it's also about what you're doing. So I'm excited to get into this because, first and foremost, I was someone who has always had a love for communications in terms of communicating a message. Sometimes it's through art, or it's through a conversation, or maybe it's through nonverbal communication. But there are so many different forms of communication out there. And as someone who is an artist at heart, and it is the root of who I am, I always love coming up with creative ways to express yourself, right? But people don't understand that communicating is one of the most challenging things to do when you are first getting to know someone in a relationship. Even after years of knowing them in a relationship, it can be challenging. So who is this message for? I know sometimes I target my singles, and I know other times I target the people who are couples. But today I am saying it's for everyone, okay? This is not for any particular group, so you are in good company. All right, so hear me out. Why is communication so important? First and foremost, before I get into why I feel communication is so necessary, is because I see so many people desiring to enter into a relationship with someone that they can essentially build their life with, right? But how do you do that if you're not expressing what's on your mind, what's on your heart, your thoughts, your opinions, your concerns, the things that you're grateful for? It's going to be problematic if you don't learn how to communicate. It's difficult even when you do know that you need to communicate. So how much more challenging will it be to try and share your thoughts, feelings, opinions with someone if you're not being forthright and honest with them? So in terms of communication, I want to start by just addressing the fact that people need to be honest. And this isn't the first time you've heard it in my videos before, unless this is your first time here. I've mentioned this in video content. I've mentioned it when I've gone live. It's so important for you to be honest with your partner. Now you might say, okay, well, yeah, next. No. When I say honest, I mean tell them the things that they want to hear. Tell them the things that they want to hear. Tell them the things that they don't want to hear. Tell them the things that are important to you. Tell them the things that you don't think are that important, right? Tell them the things that you envision for your future. Talk about the things that scare you. Talk about the moments that you might feel anxious. Communication doesn't just stop at, can you pick up some eggs from the grocery store? It doesn't. And that's where a lot of people get it confused. Communication goes deeper than simply expressing things that you need to get done or how you might feel from time to time. And unfortunately, so many people struggle in terms of communicating their thoughts and feelings. And I get it. It can be very intimidating when you don't want to hurt your partner or you don't intend on sending the wrong message. I get that. And so what a lot of people do when they feel anxious about confronting their partner or sharing something that might be very, very sensitive in terms of, you being vulnerable with your partner, then yes, some people will shy away from having these conversations. And I want to say that it is not an easy thing to open up about things that have hurt you. It might not even have anything to do with your partner. Maybe there are things that have scarred you in the past that it's just hard for you to talk about, right? Or express and tell them how it's affecting your present without feeling like you're judged or like they are not on the same page with you. But ultimately, that's where we're trying to get. We're trying to get you and your partner or potential partner on the same page. Now you might say, oh, I'm single. What does this have to do with me? Well, if you're single, I believe that you're looking for someone who's going to be on the same page with you, right? So that means when you're dating, you need to be a little bit more intentional with your wants, your desires, your goals, and talking about things regarding your future. Because if you are looking for something long term, if you are looking for someone who you can do life with, you're going to have to get to know them. And I know the getting to know you stage takes time, and you do want to have a good time with them, yes. But ultimately, when you're dating, that is the time period that you're supposed to be getting to know this person and see if the two of you are compatible, if your viewpoints line up enough for you to say, yeah, I think I'll do forever with this person someday, right? But you can't get there if you're not communicating your thoughts and feelings, or even letting them know when you agree or disagree. And if you're just trying to keep the peace half the time, rather than express the things that you may or may not like, right? So yes, there are so many layers to communication, but I would say it starts with being honest. All right, and let's talk about the next part of communication in terms of ways in which we can communicate better, right? We need to not be afraid to have someone correct us, right? The same way it's important for you to be honest, it's important for you to not be on the defense every time someone says something to you that you don't like. Communication is a two-way, it goes two ways, okay? Either you're the one expressing your thoughts, your opinions, your concerns, or things that you even like, or you're the person receiving this information. We have to be better at receiving whatever information our partner gives us. It doesn't mean that we're going to be happy with whatever they tell us. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that you're expected to be perfect with your response or your reaction, but be receptive. Be a good listener. Don't wait to just get out your thoughts, your feelings, your opinions. Because some people do that in arguments, and I understand we all have our moments where we're trying to think of our next thought to make our next point. But if you genuinely want this relationship to work, whoever you're in a relationship with, right? Listen to understand. There's a difference between listening to wait for your turn to get out your next thought and listening with the intent of truly understanding what it is that your partner is saying to you. Because if you are literally just waiting to get your next point out, how were you intently listening to what it is that they were expressing to you? How did you leave room in your brain to take what they said and ask a follow-up question for an opportunity to better understand them, or an opportunity to say, well, I see where you're coming from, or express your thoughts in terms of even potentially agreeing with them, right? If you're already coming up with premeditated thoughts rather than listening and waiting to try and come up with a response based on what they're saying in the moment. So we need to not only be honest with our partners, but we have to be better at receiving the information that we take from our partners. And when I say be better at receiving it, I don't mean be a punching bag. I don't mean sit there and hope that they don't make you get angry and be fake and phony and pretend that everything's fine when it's not. I'm saying be a better listener at receiving that information, but also don't be afraid to ask questions about the things that you do not understand. Don't be afraid to say, I don't understand why you're asking me this, or I am not sure of where you're coming from. I'm not sure where this conversation is headed. Don't be afraid to ask questions based on how you feel in the moment. Some people feel like that's a form of weakness, or they feel like if I say this, then I might look like I'm just pouting or I'm upset with what they're saying. But the truth is, we don't know what's going on in your head unless you express it. Your partner does not know what's going on in your head if you do not express it. And as much as we would like to sit here and pretend we know it all, the truth is we don't know it all. I don't know what you're thinking unless you express it to me. You don't know what I'm thinking unless I express it to you. Why am I saying this? Being better at receiving information means not being afraid to follow up on the information that you received. Maybe you didn't get it the first time, or you thought you got it the first time and you were wrong about it. It happens, right? You misinterpret what someone's saying or where they're coming from, or perhaps they said something in a certain way that turned you off, so you completely missed the point on what they were trying to say, right? It happens. But again, listen to understand. And my last point regarding communication is learning to agree with someone, disagree, and also understanding the person. Okay? And you might say, well, isn't understanding part of part two? Hear me out, because it's a different form of understanding, right? And I should probably use the word empathy. But ultimately, if you genuinely desire a healthy, happy relationship with someone, you have got to get to a place where you're willing to say, I understand, I agree, I disagree. One of those three things, right? By the end of the conversation, or that you don't understand. But you need to express understanding, the ability to agree or disagree. If you can't express agreeing, disagreeing, or understanding, then there's probably some issue in the conversation. And even if you have to pick up at another point in time to try and understand what you didn't understand, then you need to do that. But a conversation shouldn't end until there's an I agree, I disagree, and or I understand, or you empathize. Just because you disagree with someone doesn't mean you can't understand where they're coming from. I'll give you an example. I have a sister of mine. I have more than one sibling, but one of my sisters has disagreed with me in so many ways, on so many occasions. It's just part of being siblings, right? But my love for her hasn't changed. I have also learned that we go about doing things differently. We might be on the same page, but we handle things differently. We might even think about responding or reacting differently. And I learned that just because you do something different from someone else, or they think differently or respond differently, doesn't necessarily mean someone's right or wrong per se, as much as learning to understand that person. Because I used to think we're not on the same page because we don't agree, but a lot of times we weren't on the same page because we didn't go about handling things or responding or reacting to things the same way. And a lot of times we would be on the same page. Again, we just could not get to the place where we understood and respected the other person. And again, in a relationship dynamic, it's kind of similar. You definitely want to be able to open up to your partner, hear where they're coming from, and make them feel seen, understood, whether you agree or disagree. And a common misconception is that you have got to be on the same page in order to understand a person. That's not true. In fact, even when I've disagreed with some people, I'm like, okay, I understand where they're coming from. I wouldn't go about it this way, but I understand where they're coming from. I empathize. And a lot of times people want to feel like you understand where they're coming from. Not that you didn't comprehend what they said or did comprehend, but you understand them, you empathize with them. You can relate, you get why they're saying what they're saying, why they did what they did. And again, you don't have to agree with them in order to understand their mindset or get things from their perspective, if that helps. So if you desire a healthy relationship, I would strongly suggest being honest with where you stand, as well as being receptive and getting to a place where you can agree, disagree, or empathize, I'll say, with what is being said, because we all want to feel seen, we all want to feel heard, we will all want to feel understood. That is the foundational truths of communication. It's to be honest, to be receptive, to be able to come to a conclusion by the end of it on if you agree, disagree, and again, understand or empathize, right? If you can get to that place in terms of communication, you will be so much better off. This works if you are dating, if you're in a relationship, if you are going through a breakup. We as people, we all have to communicate. I'm communicating with you all right now, right? But we can all work toward being better communicators, better listeners, being more receptive to people, listening to understand, not listening to get out our next point. We can all agree to disagree. We can respectfully disagree. We can respectfully hear people out, right? But no matter what we do need to get to a place where we start communicating better. And this goes across the board. Even if you're somebody who is like, I'm not even considering a relationship, it will help you on your job. It will help you with your friendships, the platonic relationships that you've established, right? We all can improve when it comes to communication. So that is my number one reason why I feel relationships can do well, succeed, or not do so well. But ultimately, whether someone that you're dating or in an exclusive relationship with, regardless of who it is, if you learn to communicate your thoughts, feelings, etc., right? Whether things work out with that person or not, it's important to express where your head is at and be receptive to where their head is at, so you can see if the two of you make sense to move forward or not. And hopefully the end result is that you're able to work through it, and better understand each other, or you just move on with your life, right? And they move on with theirs. That is all I have on this topic today, but communication is so vast. Like, when I tell you it's vast, it's like I can probably have like 3, 4, 5, 6 parts to communication. But this is just the foundational truths in terms of how we communicate. And if we start at level 1 in terms of communication, then we can work our way up to level 2, level 3, level 4, or I should say topics within how we communicate as people. But you're not a failure if you do communicate with your partner and they still don't want to hear from you. You're not a failure if both of you are respectful and you just can't get on the same page. You're not a failure if neither one of you gets to the place where you're able to communicate or understand one another, right? I try and stay away from the word fail. I used to use that word, and now I see it more like, okay, well, someone's either for you or they're not. And communication has absolutely nothing to do with that. That's the number one reason, my top reason why relationships don't do well. But it's also my top reason why I feel the need to communicate. And I encourage singles specifically to communicate and be intentional about communicating better, because you don't want to waste time with someone who's not for you. And if you're in a relationship already and you realize the two of you can't get on the same page in terms of communication, then it might be time for the two of you to move on, right? Definitely try. If you're committed, if you're exclusive, been together for a long time, and you see the potential, definitely express how you feel and don't be afraid to do it. All right, that's all I have for you today. It was a longer video. Heads up, if you're going to listen to my communication videos, maybe you might want to wash some dishes, or if you're driving in the car, that might work, or if you're going for a jog. But that is all that I have for you today. But the next time I go into this, we're going to continue on how to communicate better so that you can succeed in terms of your relationships. All right. If you are not already following me on TikTok, definitely give me a follow. I go live, at least during the recording of this video. I go live during the week. And whenever there are any changes to my schedule, I usually say something in my story. So just keep an eye out for my story. I typically go live right now in the evenings. But again, just keep an eye out on my story, because I'll be able to tell you when I have any changes or updates in that schedule. And I am at the Situationship Expert. That is the Situationship Expert on TikTok. All right. I hope that you all succeed in terms of your relationships, in terms of growing, in terms of knowledge. The purpose of this YouTube channel is to encourage you to try love again, to work on ourselves, and ultimately have faith that we can find the right person and work on ourselves simultaneously, right? That being said, thank you for joining me on this episode of the Situationship Expert YouTube channel. I am your host, India Lynn, and until the next video, take care.